No, I don't hate Balboa, but I pity the fool, and I will destroy any man who tries to take what I got. Thank you for connecting to your AOL internet account to hear this latest episode of the Scotty Don't X Show. This is episode 11, and I've always wanted to try something. Buckle in, true believers, you won't believe this stunt. Good day, and today I will be presenting my thoughts as if I'm your NPR host in a calm, measured, and thoughtfully smart way. And today, we're exploring a topic that touches so many of us, whether directly or indirectly: mental health care. Specifically, we'll be taking a look back at mental health care in the 1980s and comparing it to where we are today, 40 years later. It's a story of progress, challenges, and evolving understanding, but one that also highlights how far we still have to go. In the 1980s, mental health care was, well, let's just say, a different landscape. It was a time when terms like therapy and mental illness carried heavy stigma. People weren't having open conversations about anxiety, depression, or trauma. Seeking help was often seen as a last resort. It wasn't something you discussed at the dinner table or on your social media feed. Well, we didn't have the social media yet, but you know what I mean. The 1980s saw the rise of what we now call deinstitutionalization movement. Large psychiatric hospitals, which had been the primary mode of care for many, were being closed down. This was supposed to be a shift towards more community-based care. But in many cases, there wasn't enough infrastructure to support people once these hospitals were gone. As a result, many individuals with mental illnesses ended up homeless, incarcerated, or lost in a system that wasn't equipped to help them. Back then, treatment options were more limited. We didn't have the vast array of medications and therapies that exist today. Antidepressants like Prozac were only just coming into the scene in the late 80s. Therapy, if people could afford it, often meant traditional psychoanalysts or basic counseling. And for many, mental health issues were met with a dismissive, just snap out of it attitude. Fast forward to 2024, and the picture is thankfully quite different. For one, we talk about mental health now openly, publicly. Celebrities, athletes, politicians, they're all discussing their struggles with mental health. Social media, podcasts, and movements like hashtag Bell Let's Talk or hashtag Mental Health Awareness Month have made it clear. This is not something to be ashamed of. It's part of being human. Our understanding of mental health has also grown. We've come to see mental health as integral to our overall well being. We don't think of it in terms of illness, but in terms of wellness. Therapy has become more accessible, though still not as accessible as it should be for many. And we've seen the rise of teletherapy, which allows people to access care from the comfort of their own homes. In the aftermath of the pandemic, this shift was crucial for many who couldn't otherwise access in person services. But perhaps one of the biggest changes is how we've begun to integrate mental health into other areas of healthcare. In the 80s, mental and physical health were treated as completely separate. Today, we recognize that mental health impacts physical health and vice versa. Integrated care models, where mental health professionals work alongside doctors, are becoming more common. Of course, it's not all perfect. We've made strides, but many challenges remain. Access to care, especially in underserved communities, is still a major issue. The cost of therapy and medication can be prohibitively expensive for many Americans. And while the stigma is lessened, it hasn't disappeared. Some communities still face cultural or societal barriers to seeking help, and mental health care systems can still feel overburdened and underfunded. But when we look at where we were in the 80s, it's clear we've made progress. We've moved from a place where mental health care was an afterthought to a time where it's increasingly seen as essential. We're asking more questions, we're demanding better solutions, and we're understanding that mental health is health. End of story. Well, that was an interesting experiment. I've rolled back the tape, and yeah, I don't think I would pass for an NPR anchor. However, afterwards, I did a search, and NPR offers 3 tips for training your voice and other training on how to be a radio person on YouTube. Interesting. I think I'm going to need to check those out before I make another run. This is not NPR. Thanks for listening to another episode of the Scotty Don't X Show. More to come.